Mr. Speaker, I rise to make my contribution on the bill shortly entitled the Appropriation 2020 Bill 2019. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member for St. Christopher 7 outlined a budget in this debate in this House last week, Thursday. This budget, Mr. Speaker, comes, everybody in the country knows, just before a general election. The Honourable Member for number 7 could well have presented before this Honourable House a budget fanciful in nature with a lot of bells and whistles because of the impending election. But the Honourable Member for number 7, Mr. Speaker, presented a budget, not an election budget, but a budget that shows the country the medium and the long-term vision of this unity government. It outlined, Mr. Speaker, a number of positions that this government intends to take to build what I would consider, Mr. Speaker, a stronger and safer St. Kitts and Nevis. And even the blind in St. Kitts and Nevis could appreciate that the country is moving in the right direction. On the contrary, Mr. Speaker, because the members opposite recognize that there is an impending election, for the first time in this House since they sit on the opposite benches, they've made it their business to produce what I would call a scatterflam presentation on the budget. Scatterflam. And they gave a number of things which they say that they will do in the next 5 years if elected. The only problem with that, Mr. Speaker, is that they ain't going to get the chance to implement them. Because the good people of St. Kitts and Nevis recognize that they've been there and they don't want to go back to that again. Because, you know, they come with this thing about some next gen. Next gen. And when I do the maths, Mr. Speaker, 3 persons on the opposite benches who will contest the next general election is 200 years they add up to. 3 of them, 200 years. 170, 68, 60 something. 200 years. But they're now next gen. It's obvious to me that the person who coined that phrase really didn't understand who he was speaking about when they talk about next gen.
Deceptive all the time.
And as my colleague said, deceptive. But the people of the country will not be deceived by anything about next gen, because it's the same old khaki pants. Same old khaki pants. The people of the country would have appreciated the word next gen in this context had the members opposite brought to the people of this country a new driver, a young, new, fresh driver. Then they could have been talking about next gen. But you can't talk about next gen when the driver of the vehicle on pension. Driver of the vehicle and pension.
Social security.
Social security, give him money. But he's next gen. How on earth they get that work? And the members with him sit down on the opposite benches and take that. I mean, you got a young fella member from number 3. Young member from number 3 couldn't say to the recipient of Social Security number 6 member. Patrice must laugh because Patrice knows the member for number 11 knows what I'm speaking about. And so it is deceptive to come and talk about next gen. The next gen needs suppli-gen. It's suppli-gen the next gen need.
Well, that's the headline.
And so we are not worried about them on this side, Mr. Speaker. We are focused in the work that we have to do to move this country further in the right direction. And when we look, you see, we plan these things, Mr. Speaker, because when you look at our manifesto for 2015-2020, the record speaks for itself. Because on the first page of our manifesto 2015-2020, we gave a snapshot of what we would do if we were given the opportunity in the February 2015 elections to govern the country. We gave a snapshot. And in this snapshot of what we gave, we outlined 9 things that we would do in the snapshot. 9 things. And you see, this election is about performance. And when you look, the first thing we said we would do, $500 on the PAP program. Done. We said we would do that. We did it. Done. No VAT on food, medicine, education, supplies, and food and expenses. Done.
We did that.
Reduction in the mortgage payments for NHC houses and lost student loan payments. Done. Prompt payment of overdue 16 million. Done. And you could go down and down and down on these 9 items, and you would recognize there is one outstanding, and I'm sure this is done here, I'm not even sure. One outstanding thing I consider outstanding, but somebody may correct me. Free preschool education, Minister of Education, done. What is this? You see that? You see that?
I did that.
He had
You don't know by now.
I did that. He put something temporary in place.
So, Mr. Speaker, the facts speak for themselves. And you know, I am going to, in my presentation, outline facts, because when the members opposite talk, they don't come with anything concrete or evidential basis for what they speak. They just talk. And Mr. Speaker, I've been given the opportunity to head 2 particular ministries. One is the Ministry of International Trade, Industry, Commerce and Consumer Affairs, and the other, the Ministry of Tourism. And I want to begin with the Ministry of International Trade and outline what has been done in this ministry and where we intend to go further. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, the government can once again vaunt of a prospering, buoyant economy. One which signifies, Mr. Speaker, solid developments, not only for the Federation collectively, but for all of the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. The Ministry of International Trade, Industry, Commerce and Consumer Affairs has made expansionary contributions to fostering our economy and has made enormous trade-related impacts, not only locally, regionally, but also internationally, Mr. Speaker. And this ministry continues to fulfill its mandate of protecting consumers and the environment and serve as a portal to facilitate exporters and to strengthen our economy by making great efforts in the continued development of our entrepreneurs. Mr. Speaker, allow me first to speak on the work of the Department of Consumer Affairs. This department is the public service arm of the ministry. And this department ensures that supermarkets, convenience stores, and even the mom and pop shops are adhering to price ceilings for our food basket items, with the continual monitoring of food labels and price tags, Mr. Speaker. This department unrelentingly informs, educates, and empowers our consumers through weekly inspections of supermarkets to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the food that is on the shelves is fit for human consumption, and we continue our education outreach also to the various primary schools. And we carry a quarterly analysis of the food basket items to ensure that the consumers in the country are kept abreast of the prices that are in the food basket, Mr. Speaker. In 2020, Mr. Speaker, the department will continue its restructuring process, which will coincide with the adoption of the CARICOM consumer protection legislation. So we expect, Mr. Speaker, to have that bill successfully passed in this Honorable House. It is envisaged that the adoption of this comprehensive legal framework, in addition to the continued strengthening of the staff complement of the department, will drastically enhance the level of consumer protection offered to residents of the Federation. The Consumer Affairs Department, Mr. Speaker, aims to continue its positive pursuit of collaborations with other governmental agencies, such as the Ministry of Finance, to introduce revised practices in relation to the renewal of business licenses. Businesses of the Federation seeking to renew such licenses would be required to undergo site inspections to ensure that they adhere to all the laws and stipulations of the Consumer Protection Act, such as having prices displayed on all the items for sale before the licenses can be renewed. I want to turn, Mr. Speaker, to the Bureau of Standards, because they have been performing a mammoth task with little resources, and one must appreciate that all the testing in the schools, etc., for mold is done by the Bureau of Standards. And so their work has been increased because of the challenges in this area, Mr. Speaker. And so, Mr. Speaker, the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards is on a continued quest to fulfill its mandate as it relates to the protection of the environment, health and safety for all consumers, with high-quality products of meteorology, services in weights and measures to ensure efficiency. The various labs, Mr. Speaker, under the authority of the Bureau, are very actively engaged in services to the general public, private entities, and across the various government ministries. These services, Mr. Speaker, include soil testing, air quality testing, food and water chemistry, and such like, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, standards play a very important and pivotal role in the Federation's national quality infrastructure. And for the Federation to begin trading, Mr. Speaker, on the international market, we must first develop relationships that are built on trust. But how do we build trust in the international arena, Mr. Speaker? Today, trust is built by using the various means, such as agreements and MOUs, codes and regulations and standards. And in the NQI, due to the ever-present presence of the standards, Mr. Speaker, they show up in the testing of measurements, their certification standards, and accreditation. And all three areas employ the use of standards for goods and for services. As an example, Mr. Speaker, let us use the example of bottled water in St. Kitts, just for argument's sake, which is one of the major products used in St. Kitts and Nevis. In order to ensure that this is safe, there is a packaged water standard that shows the limits of certain contaminants, minerals, and biological content. It also gives specifications on how the water is to be produced and the methods used for sterilization, Mr. Speaker. And when all of these criteria are put together, the manufacturer produces a quality product that consumers enjoy. In order to strengthen the NQI standard, we have to adopt certain standards, and the standards must be one of priority, Mr. Speaker. Priority to promote and ensure the quality of the products and services, to ensure safety, to ensure reliability. And therefore, the Bureau of Standards has collaborated and listened to its stakeholders, and we have adopted 7 standards, Mr. Speaker. And these 7 standards were identified by a technical committee, which was made up of key stakeholders who decided that as a country we should adopt the following standards, Mr. Speaker. And they determined that they should be in the area of packaged water, the labeling of goods, regional energy efficiency building code, environmental management, labeling of prepackaged food, and tourism and related services, i.e. beach operations, etc. And Mr. Speaker, these are only the first of many standards which the Bureau of Standards will adopt to strengthen our Federation's NQI. And we stress and focus on NQI because there are many that would benefit from the adoption and use of these standards, Mr. Speaker. Namely, businesses who can offer products that meet international requirements, thereby gaining market access, whether it is in North America or whether it is in Europe. Consumers also, Mr. Speaker, on the other hand, who would be afforded a wider range and choice of safe, reliable, and consistent product and services. Governments also, they will have scientific and technological basis to impose technical regulations based on health, based on safety and the environment to ensure their national interests, Mr. Speaker. And trade officials also, because they can skillfully use the standards to level the playing field for trading and settlement disputes, often out of court, Mr. Speaker. Standards can benefit the government a great deal, Mr. Speaker, because government can use standards to impose tariffs and regulations that would not be considered as technical barriers to trade. This is because if measures are taken by a country, and those measures are based on standards which are scientifically based, Mr. Speaker, barriers to trade are often reduced because a standard was used to justify a country's national position and policy. Due to tariffs imposed because of standards, Mr. Speaker, a country's government can find itself in a favorable position for a new stream of revenue. Agriculture, for example, Mr. Speaker, is a huge sector in St. Kitts and Nevis, which we all rely on. The areas of agriculture, plants and fresh fruits and vegetables, animal, both poultry and meat, fish and fish products, and agro-processing, the value added to that, Mr. Speaker. And in the past years, the country has run into numerous trade disputes. We may not know that or realize in one or more of the above sectors, Mr. Speaker, simply because we lack the necessary standards and adhering to these standards when they are available. And so that's an area of challenge and an area that we need to improve on, Mr. Speaker. And without standards relating to these sectors, the country will struggle to export locally made commodities, and that has always been the case, Mr. Speaker. We will forever continue to be a large importer where countries sell to us while we disguise it as trade. And true trade, Mr. Speaker, comes from when we have built enough trust to export our commodities with very little dispute. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to the Bureau's laboratories, our lab continues with its capacity to adhere to its mission to deliver the highest quality service in food, water, and environmental testing, and to monitor compliance to related standards and regulations to foster the improved quality of life for all our citizens in the country, Mr. Speaker. And we have done thousands of chemical analysis, Mr. Speaker, conducted yearly for many sectors of our society on an ongoing basis, which includes a wide variety of testing, ranging from food, soil, air, and water. And the Bureau, Mr. Speaker, will continue enhancing and maintaining its labs for the purpose of furthering the practice of standardization, provide for the testing at the request of various ministries, and from time to time, they seek us out, Mr. Speaker. Water used for several sensitive applications in the biomedical labs and hospitals and the dialysis machines, all those, Mr. Speaker, need to be tested by persons from the Bureau of Standards. Removing the harmful waste and extra salt and fluid helps the control the blood pressure and the pH balance and the plasma volume. And all this, the Bureau ensures is done, Mr. Speaker. And for the health and safety of the hemodialysis patients, Mr. Speaker, it is vital to ensure that the water that is used to make the dialysis is safe and clean, Mr. Speaker. And ideally, all the water consumption is tested, Mr. Speaker, on a regular basis by the Bureau of Standards. The lab, Mr. Speaker, is presently involved in an ongoing project through the Agricultural Department, Mapping Soil Fertility for Durable Agriculture in the Caribbean Islands project. That's the name of the project. And the project was formulated by the Kingdom of Morocco, Mr. Speaker. An important activity within the methodology of the project, Mr. Speaker, is to prepare soil fertility maps for major and micro elements, Mr. Speaker. The project aims to reinforce scientific and technical partnerships between Morocco and not only St. Kitts and Nevis, but the Caribbean islands who are in the business of agriculture. So they help the agricultural sector, not only in St. Kitts and Nevis, but within the Caribbean at large, Mr. Speaker. And to arrive at the above goal and producing accurate and reliable results, it is pertinent to have competent staff at the Bureau. And to accomplish and sustain such, the relevant trainings have been identified and facilitated, not only nationally, regionally, but also internationally to enhance our technical capacity and continually upgrading technologies, extending the Bureau's services to the emerging sectors of the economy, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I want to move quickly to the St. Kitts Business Development Center, the SBDC, formerly NED, which was the National Entrepreneurial Development Division. Mr. Speaker, the ministry has transformed and improved NED, that is the National Entrepreneurial Development Division, to the new St. Kitts Business Development Center, the SBDC. This shift, Mr. Speaker, has gained international recognitions and benefits from which our people will benefit immensely, Mr. Speaker. The SBDC has expanded their training session for entrepreneurs to include all aspects of the business operations, from starting to operating to sustaining businesses in St. Kitts and Nevis. The government of St. Kitts and Nevis, Mr. Speaker, in keeping with its mandate to facilitate and to develop its small and medium enterprises, SMEs, has partnered with the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development, SEDI, to establish the first ever Small Business Development Center model in the Federation, Mr. Speaker. To this end, the official launch of the Small Business Development Center was done in November of 2018. This development underpins the further strengthening of our business support capabilities to regional and international support as we seek to cater to the needs of many of the varied entrepreneurs in St. Kitts and in Nevis. And this government support, Mr. Speaker, for this initiative is testimony to Team Unity's commitment to our philosophical view that prosperity must be for all. As you would recall, Mr. Speaker, we are on a prosperity agenda to move our people upwards in the right direction, Mr. Speaker. And to this end, we make bold and deliberate steps towards providing the necessary tools and creating the requisite environment for businesses and business-minded people as they strive to become economic generators in our society. And Mr. Speaker, through this model, small businesses will be given an invaluable network support, critical management and technical assistance through extensive one-on-one long-term professional advice, training, and other specialized interventions. Mr. Speaker, this project being part of the ecosystem provided to champion the growth and development of our micro, small, and medium enterprise system is not only embedded in our national socio-economic development activities, but it is also entrenched in the bilateral arrangements which our Federation and the United States of America, through our 2017 Memorandum of Understanding, signed by me, Mr. Speaker. The United States, Mr. Speaker, was represented through the Organization of American States, who is responsible for the project within the CARICOM region, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, in addition to the above, in our continued support of the development of SMEs and micro, small, and medium enterprises, this government continues, Mr. Speaker, to provide technical support to our public and private sectors by implementing essential projects that increase and encourage local investment, export development, employment generation, and to boost our local consumption. In addition, Mr. Speaker, the SBDC continues the work started by its forerunner NED, with the conducting of its community business meetings in various communities all across the Federation. And these interventions allow the local entrepreneurs to express their concerns and their difficulties and their whatever challenges they may be having, Mr. Speaker, while at the same time benefiting from the dissemination of critical business information and advice. We had 2 such interventions, Mr. Speaker, during the course of 2019. There was general technical assistance that's continually delivered through the Small Business Development Center in support areas such as business plan development, business training and assistance with applications for import duty concessions, and general business counseling, Mr. Speaker, from our core activities of the division. And to date, Mr. Speaker, some 1,300 persons, that's 1,300 persons, have been the beneficiaries of such service delivery. In addition to this, Mr. Speaker, the ministry continues to look for every opportunity to enhance the scope and level of support services available to entrepreneurs. And as such, we continue our capacity building efforts to ensure that the staff at the SBDC is equipped to deliver meaningful and tangible interventions. And in this regard, therefore, the SBDC will shortly be launching its new service in the form of a strategy planning service. And this will allow small businesses to strategically outline their businesses, showing their desired outcome. And consequently, the appropriate interventions and support mechanisms will be advanced by the center to ensure we have effective and efficient management practices employed to optimize business success, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just about 3 weeks ago, in December, I was in Belize, Mr. Speaker, at the Caribbean SBDC program hosted by the Department of Economic Development of the OAS. This was the 3rd meeting, Mr. Speaker, that they had convened in a series of biannual networks for the Caribbean SBDCs, steering committee meetings. And central to this meeting, Mr. Speaker, was the signing of an earlier negotiated MOU with the remaining project beneficiary countries and a media launch of the fully constituted network of the Caribbean SBDCs. And I had the pleasure, Mr. Speaker, of signing on behalf of the Federation on this very critical MOU, which has some significant benefits to St. Kitts and Nevis. These include, Mr. Speaker, advancing a cohesive accreditation system for the Caribbean MSMEs, future sustainability of the Caribbean SBDC programs. 3, addressing the immediate and future needs of the Caribbean SBDC program. And lastly, finalizing the governance model for the network of Caribbean SBDCs. Mr. Speaker, the development of entrepreneurship in St. Kitts and Nevis is very important and critical, and will continue to be the primary focus for the government, as it is an integral part to the progressive advancement of St. Kitts and Nevis, Mr. Speaker. And so that the SBDC continues to participate in the Global Entrepreneurship Week. This week of innovative exploration is celebrated annually, Mr. Speaker, by 156 countries throughout the world. The GEW provides a forum where visionaries and job creators who launch startups can bring ideas to life, hence driving economic growth and improving the standard of living for entrepreneurs, their families, and the general public, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the SBDC St. Kitts, we have formed a strategic partnership with other line ministries and also, Mr. Speaker, the private sector institutions, so as to ensure the delivery of an all-embracing holistic method of technical advice and assistance to such. And as such, Mr. Speaker, strategic alliances have been established within the Ministry of Youth, the Ministry of Agriculture, the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, the UWI Open Campus, the Development Bank of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and the St. Kitts Cooperative Credit Union. It must be noted, Mr. Speaker, that most, if not all, of these allies were engaged in the planning and engaged in the execution of last year's Global Entrepreneurship Week, and will continue to network to aid in the socio-economic development of all our people. The Ministry of International Trade, Industry and Commerce and Consumer Affairs, Mr. Speaker, through its business support arm, the SBDC St. Kitts, is also collaborating with the Ministry of Youth and Sports in its effort to restructure and implement its youth entrepreneurship program. This program will engage some 90 young persons with a view to provide them with the necessary support, the necessary tools, the necessary guidance as they seek to venture into the world of work and business. The format of this program will be that of an incubation setting, and that the ministry is anticipating a high level of success, especially where the creation of new youth-run businesses are concerned. It is also envisioned, Mr. Speaker, that this program will provide the motivation for non-registered youth-operated businesses to become formalized, given the availability of structured support. The ministry continues to work closely with practitioners and with the manufacturing sector with a view to ensure continued growth, Mr. Speaker. And to this end, we have formed an alliance and forged a relationship with the manufacturing division of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. And additionally, the ministry, as part of its restructuring activities, has earmarked an officer whose main function is to provide support services to the sector. And as a result, Mr. Speaker, there has been, over the past 12 months, increased interaction between the Ministry of Trade and the manufacturing sector. And this area has always been a challenge and a concern of the ministry. And so we have designated an individual to liaise between the Ministry of Trade and the manufacturing sector. And in an effort to bolster the implementation efforts of the National Manufacturing Strategy, the ministry, Mr. Speaker, continued to render guidance to the National Manufacturing Competitiveness Council, the body charged with the responsibility of the continued implementation of the National Manufacturing Strategy. And this 13-member body, comprising of both public and private sector personnel, is charged with that responsibility of implementing the policies, the goals, and the objectives of the National Manufacturing Strategy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn my attention now to international trade. The Ministry of International Trade, Industry and Commerce and Consumer Affairs is working for the people, Mr. Speaker, to fulfill and to facilitate agreements which will place St. Kitts and Nevis in the top ranking while negotiating with the rest of the world. And, Mr. Speaker, within this ministry, the Department of Trade continues to reach beyond our shores to ensure that all possible benefits from the various trade agreements channeled to our nationals. And so, Mr. Speaker, the department has made tremendous strides in keeping with its 2018 promises to advance the trade facilitation agreement. This agreement, Mr. Speaker, even before its full implementation, will decrease the gap that exists between receiving goods at the port and reducing the burdensome paperwork required before receiving the goods. And apart from this, Mr. Speaker, the cost of doing business will be reduced considerably, thus increasing overall profits. In fact, Mr. Speaker, as early as January 2019, the Department of Trade conducted a workshop sponsored by UNCTAD on the implementation of the Trade Facilitation Agreement. I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, to announce that during last week, just last week, Mr. Speaker, the World Bank undertook a technical capacity building mission right here in St. Kitts and Nevis to ensure that our trade facilitation roadmap was reasonably laid out to effectively implement the trade facilitation agreement as outlined by the World Trade Organization, the WTO. And I can report, Mr. Speaker, that from all accounts, the World Bank's mission was deemed a tremendous success. And I want publicly to commend the team at the Ministry of International Trade who worked assiduously along with the World Bank team in designing and in crafting a practical roadmap with realistic goals and objectives. In addition to the above, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Trade has made it a priority to ensure that the Federation's interest regarding Brexit is secured. And in that regard, Mr. Speaker, in March of this year, we were one of the CARICOM member states to sign an agreement to preserve our existing preferential trade terms between us in CARIFORUM and the United Kingdom in the post-Brexit era. And this government, Mr. Speaker, remains on track to ensure our people are not marginalized, even in the most uncertain and unpredictable international events. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, after months of negotiations with the United Kingdom and senior government officials in the region, we were able to push our interests with very limited resources, and we were able and produced an outcome that we believe, Mr. Speaker, is beneficial to all in the Federation and the region at large, and another milestone that this government can place on its list of fulfilled 2019 promises. Mr. Speaker, our relationship with the United States under the Caribbean Basin Initiative is paramount to our people's economic and social upliftment, and so it remains high on the government's list of priorities. And through this program, Mr. Speaker, St. Kitts and Nevis is able to secure hundreds of well-paying jobs at the Paul Southwell Industrial Site. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, through this program, St. Kitts and Nevis has remained the top exporter to the United States within the OECS for many, many years, Mr. Speaker. And so therefore it is very important for this government to mobilize a contingent which included private sector representatives who went to a trade and investment council in Miami to make sure that we continue to be exporting to the United States under the rules given, Mr. Speaker. This very, very important meeting, Mr. Speaker, not only addressed the United States concerns affecting our trade relations, but also our national and regional interests to continue and further deepen our relationship with the United States. I can say, Mr. Speaker, that at that meeting, the United States raised a very important issue which was plaguing us for a very long time. And I'm certain my colleague, the Senator, the AG, will agree with me that the issue that has been plaguing us for years was an issue between the cable company and HBO Latin America, where they were indicating to us for years that we were in a position where we were infringing in terms of the rebroadcast of certain programs on the cable TV. And so, Mr. Speaker, I can inform this honorable court, honorable House today, that I am in possession of a letter, don't have it in my hand, dated December the 2nd, 2019, where the matter now has been resolved. So that matter that has been outstanding for several years has now been resolved between HBO Latin America and the cable TV, and overall the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. And the importance of that matter, Mr. Speaker, is that it enhances our trade relations and position with the United States. Because what they were saying at that meeting, Mr. Speaker, was that, look, you have an outstanding issue with us with respect to an infringement of one of our entities in the United States. And until this matter is resolved, you are not on good terms with us. And so we are happy to report today that that matter has been concluded. Mr. Speaker, you'll always also be happy to learn that at that meeting, we paved the way for the October 16th, 2019 decision by the World Trade Organization's General Council to approve extension of the waiver of the Caribbean Basin Economic Recovery Act, CBERA, which allows for continued duty-free access to the United States market for eligible Caribbean products up to September the 30th, 2025. Mr. Speaker, you may also recall that in April 2018, Commonwealth leaders adopted the Commonwealth Connectivity Agenda at the Commonwealth of Government meeting with a view to boosting trade and investment links across the Commonwealth, with a view to raising intra-Commonwealth trade to the value of $2 trillion by 2030. And Mr. Speaker, the connectivity agenda is structured around 5 clusters that dovetail in our 2020 and beyond strategic development objectives. First, Mr. Speaker, the physical connectivity. Second, the digital, and I'm certain the learned AG will speak more to that. The regulatory connectivity, the business-to-business connectivity, and the supply-side connectivity. And via this undertaking, Mr. Speaker, we will maintain the commitment to mainstreaming inclusive and sustainable trade cuts across each of these clusters. Mr. Speaker, the view really is to ensure that we put our people in a position of economic growth through our trade practices, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn now to the Ministry of Tourism, Mr. Speaker. And I wish to begin in this regard, Mr. Speaker, in this manner. We continue, Mr. Speaker, our thrust to sharpen our competitive edge as a tourism destination. And the Ministry of Tourism continues to implement and support initiatives that are visionary and that are strategic. They are designed, Mr. Speaker, to enhance the lives and the livelihoods, deliver sound infrastructural development, and secure robust, sustainable socio-economic growth and development for our people. Capacity building, customer service excellence, product enhancement and expansion, and destination stewardship all remain areas of high priority as we fine-tune mechanisms that are delivering memorable and unique guest experiences, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the significant contribution of the tourism sector to the overall economy of St. Kitts and Nevis is obvious and measurable, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, according to the statistics provided by the World Travel and Tourism Council, the WTTC, in their 2019 Economic Impact Report for St. Kitts and Nevis, it says that the total contribution of travel and tourism to the GDP in 2018 was $634.5 million US dollars, representing some 62.4% of GDP. 634.5 million US dollars, representing 62.4% of GDP. With a 2018 travel and tourism GDP growth of 16.4% growth 2018. Not my figures, the figures of the World Travel and Tourism Council, 16.4% growth. They said, directly and indirectly, tourism provides approximately 15,000 jobs, or 59.9% of total employment in St. Kitts and Nevis. 59.9%. And Mr. Speaker, this is a clear indication that the strategies for tourism, infrastructure, and product development, as well as marketing strategies being implemented by this team unity government has been successful in yielding positive and impactful results. You see the figures are there. They don't lie, they can't hide, they are stubborn. The figures are there. I come into the boat. The dinghy, they say. I come into the dinghies. I can get there. I get into the dinghies. I come into the dinghies. And further to the growth of the sector, a good size dinghy. Further to the growth, Mr. Speaker, of the sector over the past year, the tourism product, I'm going to come to the avocado too. The tourism product of our Twin Island Federation has continued to excel, Mr. Speaker. I have a few accolades here gained over the last 12 months, which I have to talk about. St. Kitts and Nevis ranked by U.S. News and World Report number 3 on a list of the best Caribbean honeymoons. Number 5 on a list of the best family vacations in the Caribbean. Number 8 on a list of the best destination wedding spots in the Caribbean. Number 8 on the list of the best affordable Caribbean destination.
Every time Nigel move over like you.
Yeah. Once his lips move, pure light coming. But my grandmother used to say, what you expect from a bag of coals but dust? Can't expect nothing else. Is Nigel talking? You can't expect nothing from a bag of coals but dust. Okay, Mr. Cole. And Mr. Speaker, just last Wednesday, you know, facts are stubborn, you know. Just last Wednesday, I was informed, and so was the rest of the world, in the ensuing days, that St. Kitts and Nevis were named Best Cruise Caribbean Destination for 2019. Nobody better than us. Nobody better than us on the team unity.
Down from number one.
Down from number one. We're number one. Oh boy. Down from number one.
From number one to the best. We were number one for several years.
And Mr. Speaker,
We were number one for several years.
Mr. Speaker, while I'm talking about accolades, in April of this year, my permanent secretary and her assistant traveled to Seville, Spain. And why they went there? They went there to receive the Destination Stewardship Award at the World Travel and Tourism Council's Tourism for Tomorrow Forum. It is the top recognition in the world we got in sustainable tourism. You can't. We don't or we get the best? Down from number one, you say? Down from number one, but we're the best in the world. Best in the world.
Number one to best.
Accolades, Mr. Speaker.
Platform.
And Mr. Speaker, we continue to be flooded with commendations and words of commendations and congratulations from reputable, internationally recognized, credible organizations, not the mouth from the man with the dust of coats. Not he, but credible organizations. Credible. So you see, Mr. Speaker, the sour grapes rhetoric and misguided attempts from a few of the naysayers to fool and confuse people are not really gaining any traction. Can't say. Because even the blind man can see that our hard work to preserve an authentic and sustainable tourism product to strengthen the solid reputation of this country is finally paying dividends, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, our bold concrete steps to address climate change and to establish a legacy of inclusive, holistic, balanced, and responsible development are certainly raising our profile in the global tourism community, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, this year, another year of significant growth. Another year of significant growth. Let's talk about ALIF. Year to date, from January through October 2019, we recorded a 7.8% system-wide increase. 7.8%, January to October. For the month of February alone, Mr. Speaker, arrivals increased 20.7% in February alone, system-wide, and 25.6% from North America over February 2018. That is what we're doing for 2019, moving the country along in the right direction. Further, Mr. Speaker, we topped last year's record, increasing June system-wide ALIF arrivals by an additional 6.8% in 2019. Of course, driven by the phenomenal influx of travelers to attend the 2019 St. Kitts Music Festival. Boy, we're getting a lot of accolades. Country moving in the right direction. Team unity, good. One good term, they say, deserves another. And Mr. Speaker, American Airlines added summer non-stop service from Dallas-Fort Worth, starting when? Tomorrow, December 18, 2019, Dallas-Fort Worth non-stop service. We'll add a second weekly non-stop flight from New York's JFK on the Wednesday year-round. Year-round. Not just in season, year-round. Year-round. We're doing well.
Not just in the season.
A midweek service, Wednesday year-round. Never been done before. Never been done before. Never been done before, year round.
You lost direct flight and gate.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Stand message, man. You punch it.
Bag of coals, supplicant. Oh, no, you're not supplicant. No, eh? You're not supplicant.
I'm Tanzania.
You're not supplicant. In addition, Mr. Speaker, both American Airlines and Delta have eliminated the May hiatuses on their non-stop flights from JFK for 2020, providing a continuous service from peak season through summer. Further, Mr. Speaker, from February the 11th to April the 14th, 2020, Air Canada will operate a second weekly non-stop flight from Toronto Pearson International Airport to St. Kitts on Tuesdays for the first time in our country's history. That's progress on the team unity. That is what we're doing, making sure that our country progresses and we move in the right direction. But look at here again, Mr. Speaker. We also earned Special Recognition Award 2018-2019 from Air Canada Vacations in light of the growth of service of air passengers carried. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I can stop here. In fact, they gave us, because we're doing so well, they gave us a larger plane. And we still had a load factor of somewhere in the region of 94% load factor coming out of Canada. That's how we grow in the Canadian market, Mr. Speaker. In fact, when I'm looking at these numbers, Mr. Speaker, we recorded a total of 153,364 persons arriving by air, the highest number to be achieved in our history. And we are on track to exceed that number again in 2019. Progress, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that's airlift. But you know, cruise paints an even better picture. Because the sector, Mr. Speaker, continues to record phenomenal, remarkable, unprecedented growth for us in St. Kitts and Nevis. The total number of cruise ship calls into St. Kitts grew from 424 in 2017-18 to 517 for the same period in 2018-2019. I wasn't too good on maths, but look at it. I wasn't too good on maths, but between one year to the next, it was 149 calls more.
Wow.
What is, hey, you know, I want to go back, Mr. Speaker, because, you know, what I said, the proof of the pudding is in the eat, that's what it is?
Yeah,
I have 2013 here. I want to give you, Mr. Speaker, the figures, because you know, they're stubborn. I want to give you the last recorded by the Labour government. The last set of numbers recorded by the Labour government. The actual calls last number. I want you to listen carefully, Mr. Speaker. Their calls at their maximum when they left. Well, when the people are St. Kitts and Nevis, we run them. Was 294 calls they had. 294 calls. Here how many calls I had? 517. 517. Okay, we'll call this dinghy now. The most passengers they ever had when they demitted office, 638,269. What was ours? I'm being generous. I give them a generous. 638,289. What was ours last year? 1,212,462. 100% increase in 5 years.
That's a big thing.
100% increase in 5 years. These are the facts. These are the facts. Oh, yeah? So you negotiate 2014 for 2019? What is this? He negotiated, yeah. Yeah. So you negotiated the dinghy ones too?
Why you only negotiate 5 minutes in advance?
You're good in negotiating, man.
I think he was very good.
You try it and Ricky said nothing to August, so. Ricky said he glad to run me from Ohio. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. I ain't even talk about the largest cruise ship in the world, the Symphony of the Seas. You want to negotiate that one too? You negotiate that too? And Mr. Speaker, to top it off. What's here? To top it off. For 2017, 2018, 1 million cruise passengers. For 2018, 2019, 1 million cruise passengers. Boy, I tell you, we are the only destination in the OECS could give you 1 million passengers, and not only 1 million passengers, but 1 million passengers back to back to back.
Yes.
That's this team unity, performance. Wow. And I want to say, no amount of empty rhetoric, no amount of empty rhetoric, no amount of naysaying and propaganda can change the facts. Because facts are the facts are the facts. Stubborn. Yes. And so, Mr. Speaker, look here. Preliminary findings of the FCCA, the Florida Cruise and Caribbean Association, the BRACE study. Facts again, you know? Facts again. The economic impact on cruise tourism survey. They surveyed cruise passengers and they surveyed the crew. And our spend has gone up under this government again from $111 US per passenger to $135.94, or 22.1% increase per passengers. Performance again. Performance again. I guess you negotiate that too. You negotiate that too. In fact, the study ranks St. Kitts and Nevis as having the third highest cruise spend among 35 destinations. The only ahead of us, we have never been number one. We have never been number one in this category. We have never been number one in spend. Never been. Talk. You have never been, I want the record to reflect this. We have never been number one in passenger spend. This is the highest we have ever been. And the only country ahead of us is St. Martin and the BVI. And we're going for them. Because when the president of the FCCA was here about a month ago, she predicted that in 5 years, we would be number one in spend out of all of the jurisdictions in the Caribbean. And that is what we're headed for.
That will happen on the later.
Mr. Speaker, there's been some talk by a misguided few about the dinghy ships, referring to the small cruise vessels, let's say, that docking down the pier. But I want to educate them and inform them about these dinghy cruise ships they're talking about.
I want to know about them.
You want to know about them? I mean, I can tell you. I'm going to tell you now. For example, Mr. Speaker, the average spend per passenger for a cruise on the ships like Crystal and Windstar Cruises, which they call in the dinghy ships, is approximately $4,000 to $5,000. Much higher. Much higher spend. On the Saga, the approximate cost for a cabin there is £7,119. Pounds. But you know, some people familiar with pounds, so they know more about me. Right? Some people. £7,119 for cabin.
You collecting cabin fees?
For cabin.
You collecting cabin fees?
And I want to say, you see, that ship we'll talk about, Saga, it has not visited us since 2013, 2014. But maybe since I consider them to be dinghy, you didn't want them to come. But we want the dinghy ones then, because the dinghy ones spending money. Spending lots and lots of money. $7,119. But I was 70.
But you can do 11 trips, I mean.
Oh, Lord of mercy. 11 cruises. And so, it's now returning for the 2019-2020 season, sailing from Southampton to the Caribbean. But let the dinghy them come, because they're spending money. Clearly, Mr. Speaker, these guests have quite some disposable income. And they're not afraid to spend. They come and they spend and they spend and they spend.
You can't go Southampton.
Mr. Speaker, for the life of me, Mr. Speaker, I cannot understand why people who really ought to know better, Mr. Speaker, I can't understand for the life of me why people who really ought to know better, who say they want to manage this country and this transversal sector, will insult our cruise partners and their affluent guests by referring to them and their vessels as dinghy ships. I can't understand why. People who ought to know better. But these are the types of ships that other destinations are desperate to have. Desperate. As a matter of fact, I got a call recently from Antigua, and somebody in Antigua, and asked, how Sink is doing so well? What you guys doing down there to attract all of these cruise vessels? You guys have to be doing something right. And I said, well, you have a good government down here. You have a unity government. Mr. Speaker, I'm still on the issue of cruise. And I gave you the numbers already since we took office. I gave you those. But Mr. Speaker, you see, they were saying that we have a spoiled peer. A spoiled peer. And they were laughing, saying the avocado. Why the avocado? You have a spoiled peer. Avocado.
Remember for number 9 said it.
But somebody just this morning, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just this morning, you have the people in talk about we have an avocado down there. Avocado, no problem. But somebody sent me a note on WhatsApp this morning. And they say, I have something for your grant. Don't worry them when they're talking about you got avocado down there. Hear what the acronym avocado means. They sent me a note this morning. By the time I wake up to the avocado. And hear what they say avocado. The acronym avocado. A vision our citizens appreciate despite the opposition party. Avocado. A vision our citizens appreciate despite opposition party. Yeah, then? But I don't want to get distracted. But I went by my parents this morning. And my old man not feeling too well. So I went and make sure he's all right. And he says to me, boy, Lindsay, I was listening, I'm listening to the parliament, But what? He gave me a word, it's not, what is it, parliamentary like? So he said, what? Nigel and them up there chatting. I said, so what do you mean? He said, well, I thought they were saying just last week that the pier can't take no ship and that the pier spoiled. Yeah. But how come the next day, I bring 2 big ships down there and put by the pier? 2 big ships, I put down by the pier. Imagine that. You guys good enough? You want to change the argument midstream? No. Change the rules of engagement midstream.
You don't spend $71 million to bring things down. The thing is,
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, we ain't really in a war. We don't have any time to waste on divisive rhetoric meant to confuse and bamboozle people who just want to make a decent living. Because that is what we're doing. We are providing the means and the mechanism for people to make money in this country to promote our prosperity agenda, which we're on. Prosperity agenda. Yeah. And so, with proper management and coordination, Mr. Speaker, we are implementing at our ports, our collaboration will become the new competition. Collaboration, the new competition that will enhance and distinguish our tourism product. You see, Mr. Speaker, you know, I walked down on that pier yesterday with my colleague, the member for number 1, and the Prime Minister. And I'm not lying, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister could come when he come and talk about it. But we couldn't walk anywhere. With the congratulations we gave, boy, we love this, we're going to make a lot of money. The taxi drivers, the hair braiders hugging up the Prime Minister. We couldn't get out of there. Remember from number 1 answer? Hug, kisses, all kind of thing. We said, but we said to him, but this is what we're here for. We're here to work for the people of the country. And they say, well, one good turn what? Deserves another. That's what I say. One good term deserves another. So, you know. But I want to talk a little bit, Mr. Speaker, about our hotel expansion in this country. Because Koi Resorts and Residences is going to do a soft opening very shortly. Very shortly. Koi. And Koi is now branded by one of the biggest hotel chains in North America, Hilton. So Koi is a Hilton Curio. Hilton Curio, which is very important because it's a specialized brand within the Hilton brand, the Curio. And so we want to commend the developer for bringing the Hilton to St. Kitts and for providing more rooms for the people of St. Kitts. You bring everything. You bring symphony too. We understand.
No, we bring everything, we bring Koi.
You're having delusions. Man. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to turn to our product development.
They start
because
successfully. Go ahead, man.
You guys ain't gonna finish. Maybe you could start things, but you don't have to finish. We're gonna finish and we're gonna move on to other things, and we're gonna finish the things that we move on to. That's what we're gonna do.
Very good.
Yeah? So I want to talk, Mr. Speaker, about our collaboration with the Whitegate Development Corporation. Mr. Speaker, you need to drive down to Black Rock. Black Rock has been transformed.
Yes.
And we have brought a tourism enhancement product to an area of St. Kitts which normally didn't have it. Wonderful. And we're still in the progress because we have built out 10 chattel houses and we continue. We are now doing a viewing platform. As we speak, we are doing a viewing platform. And you see, and this whole development at Black Rocks cost us. And I'm going to say it because we are a government about accountability and transparency. Total cost $1,948,460.14. That is what it costs. And Mr. Speaker, we have plans to improve the patron experience at our popular beaches. In progress. Wheelchair accessibility for the washrooms are being constructed.
$1.4 million.
Ah, boy. Nothing but from a bag of coal but dust. Bag of coal but dust. So, Mr. Speaker, at Cockleshell and Reggae Beach, we are putting down, Mr. Speaker, wheelchair accessible washrooms at a cost of $144,060.34. We are putting on a water treatment septic system, also part of this project. How much more time I have, Mr. Speaker? 10 minutes for my first thing? Okay.
You're good.
Oof. I got a lot to talk about, you know. A lot to talk about. There's so much happening in tourism. You know? Solar lighting, Mr. Speaker, being installed down at Cockershell to ensure the safety and security of patrons coming from Nevis via water taxi. Cost $104,506. That is on the way. Mr. Speaker, the government and the CDF jointly funded project at the Strip to enhance the guest experience. There is definitely spurring expansion. If you go down the Strip now, everybody doing construction on the Strip because they realize the improvement of the place. So the entrepreneurs down there have stepped up their game, who ain't demolishing and building, painting, refurbishing, lot of construction down on the Strip. So I want to thank the Team Unity government for putting the confidence and the trust in the project to give us the money with CDF for what we're doing. Mr. Speaker, the elements for phase 2. I just want to talk a little about the phase 2 of the project because that's phase 1. We're into phase 2 now. It's currently being finalized. I want you to stay tuned and focus for what we are going to do down there. We have equally good news to report about the beach side because on the beach we're getting a lot of licks, Mr. Speaker. And with the final report in from the marine engineers, the expert analysis and the initial stakeholder consultations completed, because we consulted with all the beach bars and the vendors on the Strip, consulted with all of them. We brought in some marine engineers out of Jamaica, consulted with them. We consulted with the Timothy Beach, we consulted with Frigate Bay resident. All that was done, Mr. Speaker, to indicate to them what we were doing. And Mr. Speaker, this erosion mitigation, coastal erosion mitigation project is an extremely important one, extremely important. Costing us a fair bit of money. It's going to cost us $3,696,000, Mr. Speaker. And once completed, it will not just only protect the beach per se, it will also protect and complement the significant investment and major infrastructural upgrades that we have taking place on the Strip. And note, Mr. Speaker, that similar beach nourishment exercises were undertaken in the past, you know, by the past administration. They did some beach replenishment, but the result was short-lived because the necessary follow-through for construction of the groins and the breakwaters was not carried out as recommended. So what do you think they did? They spent over $1 million. The marine engineers told them put in some groins, put in some breakwaters, otherwise the $1 million you spent gonna be washed away. They ain't take on the exports. They spend $1 million because it was coming to an election and they want to say they're doing something, and then the $1 million went poof, as they say, gone. Short-term thinking. Again, only concerned about the optics, tokenism, Mr. Speaker, but no long-term plan. All form and no substance, as my grandparents used to say. All form, no substance. And what was the result? The result is that literally millions of taxpayers' dollars washed back into the sea in a matter of months, if not weeks. But not this time, Mr. Speaker, not this time. Because this unity government and my ministry, we don't do things halfway. Rather, we see our projects through to full completion. And so the proper arrangements are being finalized for the necessary submerged breakwaters and other structures to be installed to retain the sand as the beach is being renourished, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to turn to the Eco Park with the official handing over of that institution to the government in January of 2019. Our journey is well on its way, Mr. Speaker, to deliver a locally managed and operated self-sustaining premier ecotourism attraction at the venue. Among the new and exciting features being rolled out at the facility are a much-needed restaurant, a souvenir shop to retain locally produced items, an aquaponics and tilapia exhibition, a bee sanctuary, and a butterfly farm and a petting zoo. Mr. Speaker, over the medium to long term, the Ministries of Tourism and Agriculture will continue joint efforts to transform the venue into a preferred space for nature-based educational experiences, recreational events, and family celebrations for locals and visitors alike. We are also intensifying our efforts to produce a wide array of fruit and ornaments year-round for the sale at the venue and to supply to local supermarkets, hotels, and micro-businesses. And let me at this time, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the government and the people of the Federation, to express our heartfelt thanks to the government and people of the Republic of China, Taiwan, for their generous gift, and to assure them that we will continue the good work started at the facility to the benefit and progress of our people and our agritourism product and industry. Mr. Speaker, I wish to turn now to our record-breaking, record-setting signature event, the St. Kitts Music Festival, which this year celebrated its 23rd consecutive staging at a new and more spacious venue, the Kim Collins Stadium. The event attracted, Mr. Speaker, a record number of attendees, exceeding 27,000 over the 3 nights, and over 14,000 for Saturday night alone, Mr. Speaker. Further, Mr. Speaker, we accommodated over 100 local vendors at the festival grounds, and over 300 persons worked directly with the festival, providing significant direct economic benefit. In 2018, Mr. Speaker, we made history with an early announcement of the first wave of artists on December the 7th. This year, Mr. Speaker, we broke that record again when we announced our first wave of artists on the 4th of December, some 7 months in advance of the festival. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, right now, we announced Jimmy Cliff, Coffee, and the Wizkid. And we will announce some more at Cooler Fete, which is somewhere on the 20th or the 21st, Mr. Speaker. And the chairman has assured me, and I in turn am assuring our patrons, local and overseas guests alike, that 2020 we will deliver an equally spectacular event with additional genres to cater to a wide-ranging musical preferences that persons have. And I assure you, Mr. Speaker, as well, that with the fantastic lineup that we have scheduled for release in January, all roads will lead again to the Kim Collins Stadium in June of 2020 to experience a festival like no other in the Federation and what we have to offer, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, I want to turn to this because one sore point of the St. Kitts Music Festival over the 23 years and over the 19 under the umbrella of the Labour government, they never produce any accounts. Never produce one set of accounts. I'm talking about accountability. Never produce a set of accounts. I'm talking about accountability. Never, but produce a shows. Never produce an account. Mr. Speaker, I have in my hand all of the accounts to be placed in this on the table of this honorable house at the next time that the parliament is convened. All the years under Team Unity government, we are going to produce the accounts. The first time in the history of this country that the accounts of the St. Kitts Music Festival would be tabled in the House of the Parliament. That is accountability at its best. And we will put them in the House. I guess you might say something about that too. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Tourism, we are proud of our tourism education and awareness program. It is now, Mr. Speaker, in 6 schools and other avenues for youth engagement, such as the annual Tourism Youth Congress, Effective Speaking Competition, the annual Summer Green Tourism Camp for students from the Rural West Primary School, and the FCCA poster and essay competitions, through which we share the principles of the tourism business and the message of a bright and exciting future. Mr. Speaker, our long-term goal is a thriving, dynamic, and competitive tourism sector and product, supported by stakeholders who are motivated, informed, and equipped to deliver excellence and to add value to every guest experience. And to this end, Mr. Speaker, we continue to design and implement programs and projects that are engaging, mutually reinforcing, and interconnected. And Mr. Speaker, our theme for Tourism Month 2019, therefore, was tourism refocused and we focused hashtag step up. And we have indeed been living this message, and as a call to action through our innovative and inclusive programs, which are critical to the long-term viability of this very dynamic and transversal industry. Mr. Speaker, may I be afforded the opportunity to have another 30 minutes to deliver and wrap up my presentation.
You know, that's in the hands of your colleagues, or the members of this House. The question is that the honourable member has requested...
Mr. Speaker, I know the members opposite are going to support because they want to hear it. They want to hear the rest. They want to hear the rest.
Right, real. You know, if we could continue in this way, right now, this very moment, that'll be my Christmas gift from your good members. The question is that the honourable member has requested an additional 30 minutes. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I am going to divert from the rest of my script for now, and if I have a little time, I'll come back to it. But I want to go to the important element. And the important element for me, and I will deliver in the 30 minutes, is that I want to thank the good people of number 4, who have sent me to these hallowed, honorable chambers, and who have said to me, Grant, you have to go in the budget address and say the many things that you have done and accomplished in constituency number 4. Yes. Because we want you back there again. And I said to them, unopposed. The one who they say coming against me, he gonna need more supplicant than anybody else. There's a whole case of supplicant. And in fact, I may give him a case of supplicant for Christmas. Yeah, case of supplicant for Christmas.
He's from the past generation or the next gen.
And I have my good friend Ghost with me on the campaign trail. I have my good friend Ghost, and hey, what's here? And they're ringing off the band phone this week. Ringing off the band phone this week. He ain't got a call to 2015. But they're ringing off the phone all this week. Why sweet me? Mr. Speaker, the good people of number 4 have asked me to come here and to say that they are thankful for the $31 million that is now being invested in the Old Road Bay Rehabilitation Program. I want to thank my colleague from number 1, the Minister of Infrastructure, for leading the charge. And I want to thank the Honourable Prime Minister to make the funds available, because the people of Constituency 4 say it has been long overdue. They've been waiting long for this. Yes. The previous government said they're going to give them, and as usual, all fraud, no Barbie, never deliver. And it takes a team unity government in their first term in government to produce and deliver Old Road Bay to the people of Old Road, in particular, constituency number 4, and the entire persons plying the west route.
Well done.
Man, you see people going down there every day watching, saying, this thing good, we want it finished, it's safe, strong, we want delivery. And you know,
Brentford say want to buy.
yeah, yeah. And you know the beauty about it? The beauty about it, all locals. All local working. Beauty of it. So, I said to them, in number 4, I'm going to come and talk about that.
Very good.
And they say, once you don't talk about that, we're ready for you. Because you have nobody running against you. They also asked me to come to this honorable house to thank the government for the fisheries program. The fisheries, $6 million is going on right now.
And a local contractor.
A local contractor again. Yeah. And they've said to me, this is the most in capital funds ever in the history of Constituency 4 at any one time. Almost $40 million of capital works. Yeah. And they say you have to come and tell them that for us to hear you say it. Yeah. Because we love it. But I said, boy, Grant, we want you to come into this house. And we also want you to thank the government for the hundreds of house roofs fixed in constituency number 4. Because I say, if it was not for team unity, we would never be able to fix our roofs. We will always have a bucket on the floor, a bucket on the bed, because we couldn't afford it. But thank God, a savior in team unity was here with us. And they say, if team unity is with us, we are with team unity. That's what they tell me.
That's what I tell you?
Tell me that. They also asked me, Mr. Speaker, to come in to this honorable house because they want through me to thank the team unity, the government, for the road in Virchilds, $5 million on the team unity. Because for 20 years, the past administration had left them without a road in Virchilds. And they said, thank you for that. Mr. Speaker, they also asked me to come to say thanks for the rehabilitation of the Challengers playfield. They want to say thanks. And I'm saying to my learned colleague, the Minister of Sports, thanks in advance, because he has promised me in our next term, he is going to give me the netball court in Challengers in the next term. So I want to thank him in advance for that.
He will deliver.
And Mr. Speaker, they've also said to me, they say, we know you don't like to bang your chest about what you do. You like to stay under the radar, don't take no praise. But they say, I beg you, please come tell the Honorable House this, and by extension, the entire Federation, that you provide 18, it's not a government project, this is my project. You provide, on your own, 18,000 breakfasts every year to students of the Terry Williams Primary and the Virchilds High. 18,000 breakfasts in any given year. And Mr. Speaker, it started off this way. I started off giving breakfast to 25 students of the Terry Williams. It wasn't my idea. Was not my idea. I'm not taking it as my idea. It's somebody in the community say, this was lacking, this was needed. I started getting up every morning, not like, I remember for number 5, I seen him cooking on Saturday. I was trying nothing just for breakfast. But I seen him cooking all kind of thing on a Saturday. But he's Mr. Cook and all kind of thing.
Number 5 can't cook.
I didn't say number 5 is number 9, I said number 9, not you. Sean, you can't cook. Number 5 can't cook. It was number 9. And so I started producing 25 breakfasts every morning. Me and my wife get up. We get up 4:30, 5 o'clock, and we prepare this. But it was getting so expensive. It moved from 25 to 100. And I said, I can't continue to get up 5 o'clock. I could get up 5 o'clock to produce 25. but I couldn't get up to produce 100 breakfasts. So what I did, hired a young lady. I bought two commercial stoves for Till William. I gave Till William 2 commercial stoves, and they're now producing the breakfast day every morning to in excess of 100 students every day. That's where I get my calculation of 18,000 breakfasts.
Wonderful.
They also, what's here? I glad he said that name just now, because what I forgot to tell this honorable house is when they realized the program is going so well, they went to the school. They went to the school. He carried because the supplicant man can't go on his own. He had to go with the member for number 6. So the member from number 6 took the supplicant man to the virtual primary school to beg for them to do breakfasts Thursday and Friday. And but they say, but wait. But they say, no, Grant, don't doing that. If you want, get somebody to cut the grass then. So they dismissed them. So I thank the member for number 6 for reminding me, for jogging my memory to that effect. And Mr. Speaker, they also told me, they told me to come in here, Mr. Speaker, and talk about my HARP program. What's my HARP program? HARP, H-A-R-P. Homework and Reading Program, my HARP program, where I have several teachers teaching persons after school every week in Halfway, in Challengers, in Old Road. Excellent. Making them ready. Excellent. Extra lessons, so when time comes for the exams, etc., they're on top of the game. That is what we're doing. So I want to thank the volunteers, the teachers who are doing this voluntarily because they love the community and they love what I want to get done and what I want to achieve. So I want to thank them for that. I want to thank the Minister of Education and Sports for this one. And this one's been long in coming. And so, colleague, member for number 5, I want to thank you in advance. I think it's in advance, maybe about a 3 weeks. I want to thank you though. Because I see in the budget, I'm going to have the Virtual's playing field lighted. So I want to thank the honorable member for number 5, because the people of Old Road, Virtuals, Halfway, they always crying out to me, when we going to get the lights? When I drive to Sandy Point at night time, the lights them blinding me. They're so bright and nice. And they said they want it, they share too. And so I want to thank you for putting that in the budget. So very early clock, I guess next year, or maybe this year.
Already mobilized.
Oh, better still.
Lord. My
lights have been mobilized. And so very shortly, the people of Constituency number 4 will have a well-lighted play field. Boy, they're going to love that. So I want to thank you for that. And I'm happy to report to the people of Challengers. I know you wanted your housing project. We had a lot of challenges with the area, a lot of technical challenges and difficulties. But I want to say to the people of Challengers that help is on its way. And I have been told and advised that very shortly the project in Challengers will be on its way. And so the people of Challengers can very shortly look out for a brand new spanking development provided to you by your team Unity government. Mr. Speaker, the people of Halfway have also said I should come here and remind the House that they want to thank me for the basketball court that we delivered for the people of Halfway. And I want to finally how many minutes do I have? 15? Okay, I could go back to my script then. Okay.
You're going good.
I want to finally say on this point, Mr. Speaker, that, you know, they have said to me within all this that they have never seen a government perform in this way. And yesterday, I was at Champions Bar, not Rum Barrel. I was at Champions. And I met a couple. They were from Missouri? Can't remember. But I met a couple yesterday. Didn't tell them who I was. But I engaged them in a conversation. And they said to me that, look, we were here 5 years ago on a cruise ship. And we are back 5 years later. The man did not know me, didn't say words. He said, but there has been tremendous development since 5 years when we were here. They said we drove around the country. We see all the new roads happening, the magnificent homes. I mean, we see the new cruise pier. He said, what is happening? It is only then I said to him, it is the work of the new government, Team Unity, led by Dr. Timothy Harris, that producing these magnificent edifices. That is what he said to me.
Progress.
An independent person just happened to be engaged in a conversation with me. He's seen that. And so, you know what is happening in the country? Everybody wants to come to St. Kitts. Eh? Well, I really don't know. They say the one got a U.S. citizenship. They say he got U.S. citizenship and he don't want to give it up because he knows he's going to lose and he might need medical attention. And if he give up, he's no longer going to have the opportunity to give the medical attention. That's what I understand. You have Dominican citizenship? You have Dominican citizenship? Yeah. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. This year, Mr. Speaker, we revived the National Best Village competition. Yet another pragmatic approach, Mr. Speaker, to sustainable tourism product, innovation, and development. The additional bonus, Mr. Speaker, is more cohesive communities where residents work together to maintain our natural environment and antiquities, primarily for our own appreciation and well-being, but also to share, Mr. Speaker, with our visitors. And so, Mr. Speaker, well over 25 civic-minded community groups and individuals participated in this very initiative. Many using their own money, their own equipment, personal time, and other resources to transform unsightly spaces filled with dense vegetation and garbage into beautiful and serene garden settings. A labor of love, Mr. Speaker, for and pride in their communities. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, I am so proud to report that on November the 28th, at an award ceremony held at Government House, under the patronage of our esteemed Governor General Sir S.W. Tapley Seaton, graduates from the Walking Tours training, as well as the winners in this year's National Best Village competition, received public recognition and collected their certificates, awards, and their prizes. And so, Mr. Speaker, let me extend heartiest congratulations to all the participants and make special mention of the winners in the competition as follows. Dawn Hodge Percival, Best Home Garden Vegetable. Gwyneth Woodley, Best Home Garden Ornamental. Winston Morris, Best Village Grandparent. Dorset Team, Most Consistent Group. The Mulfield Streetscape, Most Improved Group and winner of the Best Sustainable Program.
Repeat the name here.
Mulfield Streetscape, Most Improved Group and winner, Best Sustainability Program. The Cleverly Hill Sandy Point team, Best Clean and Best Green Area. Second place, Fig Tree team. Third place, the Dorset Group. The Cleverly Hill Sandy Point team, overall winner in the 2019 National Best Village competition. And Mr. Speaker, these initiatives are all part and parcel of my ministry's broader thrust and vision to empower our citizens and residents, not just to compete, but also to collaborate so that they exploit existing synergies in industry to their collective advantage. And clearly, Mr. Speaker, with this elevated level of active participation, you walk around, you go through the countryside, you see how people are getting involved and feel pride in what they're doing now, Mr. Speaker. And so there's interest and enthusiasm, and my ministry is highly motivated as well to support and to deliver these programs for the medium to long term. In 2020 and beyond, therefore, my ministry will be responding to the call for increased engagement in the communities, for more hands-on and direct interface with the farmers, the tour guides, the tour operators, the artisans, the agro-processors, the producers of health and wellness products. We are fully committed to supporting these programs, Mr. Speaker, because we can say without a doubt that the benefits are redounding and will continue to redound to a superior and competitive tourism product, to improved livelihoods, to employment and to entrepreneurship for many of our citizens. And with this, everybody wins, Mr. Speaker. Our guests, our stakeholders, our businesses, and the destination as a whole. Mr. Speaker, I have shared a synopsis of our tourism industry in action. We continue to draw inspiration from the gains we have made so far and to prepare ourselves and the upcoming generations to maximize the opportunities that lie ahead for further growth and expansion in this sector. We are in the business of making headlines for great accomplishments, Mr. Speaker, not in tarnishing the name and reputation of our beloved country, as some appear to take pleasure in doing. Our networks and our partnerships and strategic planning for tourism development and expansion are indeed yielding very impressive and positive results. And so my ministry, Mr. Speaker, remains focused, remains committed to solidifying the gains made in the industry so far, and ultimately to the benefit of our people and to the sustainable growth and development of our economy. And so before I close, Mr. Speaker, let me express my heartfelt thanks to all of our public and private sector partners who continue to work assiduously with the ministry to ensure the collective success we definitely have achieved to date as a ministry and as an industry. And so sincere thanks and deep appreciation as well to my in-house team, the members and staff at the Ministry of Tourism and the St. Kitts Tourism Authority for your efforts, for your commitment, for your drive to deliver excellence time and time again, so we continue to shine locally, regionally, and internationally. And Mr. Speaker, with those words said, I commend this bill for safe passage through this honorable House as I take my seat, Mr. Speaker.